The History Channel presents 1959.
Dwight Eisenhower was the President of the United States. Fidel Castro became the dictator of Cuba. In 1959, Chevrolet introduced the Bel Air, a fresh car. Boeing 707 made its first transatlantic flight. The Dodgers drenched the White Sox in the World Series. Bobby Darin had the #1 hit, Mac the Knife. Elvis Presley was shaking his hips. The Crew Cuts charted with Shaboom. Doris Day was the box office sweetheart. Ben-Hur earned 11 Academy Awards. Marilyn Monroe, Tony Curtis, and Jack Lemmon heat up the screen in Some Like It Hot. The History Channel traveled 40 miles north of Sacramento to the sleepy little town of Marysville, California, to track one of the greatest events of 1959. Her name was Joanne Reed back then, and she was just graduating from Marysville High School. Bob Lamora, better known as Moto by his friends in school, was a 1955 graduate from Warren High School in Rhode Island. In 1959, Bob Lamora was stationed at Beale Air Force Base in Marysville, California. They met by chance at a dance for the airmen sponsored by the senior class, and the rest is history. They spent most of their time watching movies at the State Theater from the back row, going to the drive-in, and catching an evening submarine race at Ellis Lake. After a 3-week whirlwind courtship, Bob felt it was time to approach Joanne's father and ask for her hand in marriage. In order to secure a positive outcome, Bob waited until Joanne's father was completely distracted. For that night would be the night of one of the greatest boxing upsets of all time. As Floyd Patterson hit the canvas, Bob popped the question. Just 3 short weeks later, they would be married at St. Joseph's Church in downtown Marysville. Due to the seriousness of the ceremony, all camera and photography equipment were prohibited. Following the service, the couple headed for their honeymoon destination just outside of Reno, Nevada. Although they had no money, no job, and no car, the couple had a dream, and they packed up all their belongings and they flew to the East Coast to chase that dream. The History Channel, traveling north of Sacramento, went through the small town of Lincoln, and then through Wheatland, and then through the scrub and the brush to that emerald jewel, Marysville, California. 50 years later, Bob and Joe's marriage is still vibrant. Marysville, however, pales in comparison. This is Marysville High School, the school Joanne attended 50 years ago. This is the home that Joanne spent her teenage years in, and also the home that Bob asked her father for her hand in marriage, 913 Gangler Street. The dance hall where Bob and Joe had that chance meeting 50 years ago has today been replaced by a Jack-in-the-Box. The old State Theater has been abandoned for some years. D Street, what used to be the main drag of Marysville, has undergone a complete metamorphosis. History Channel investigators discovered that Ellis Lake is actually too shallow for submarine races. What was once a drive-in theater, better known as the Makeout Pit, is now just an empty field. The most hollowed spot on our journey, and the only spot virtually unchanged in the last 50 years, is the place where Bob and Joanne exchanged vows, St. Joseph's Church. For the first time in 50 years, History Channel cameramen are able to now enter the church and show you a brief glimpse of what it looked like 50 years ago. While the priest that married them is not available, the reigning Monsignor at the church did have this to say.
Bob and Joanne, happy anniversary.
You're remembered in this Mass, and I wish I could be there for the great celebration. I know you'll be loved and cared for. Amen.
And as we leave Marysville, I can't help but wonder how different the events might have been if it weren't for that chance meeting that night. For what began as such a humble start has grown into such a rich and rewarding life together. For the History Channel, I'm Rich Kula.